All of us know that Chris Evans has always been a fan favorite as Captain America, and let's be honest, we've all been hoping he would come back to the MCU. Who wouldn't want to see him dress up as the fighter with the stars again? He did give us some of the most famous moments in Marvel history after all. Well, hold on to your shields, because there is a chance for good things to happen. We now know that there may be a secret plot that could lead to his grand comeback. Yes, you heard that right, but how? Well, there is an upcoming movie, NOMAD, that has got some attention. But what about it? Is Chris Evans a part of it? Well, to get all the answers to your questions, stay with us until the end of the video, and let's get started. In Avengers Endgame, Black Widow gave her life, and Iron Man snapped his fingers and saved the world, but it cost him the most. And Captain America, he did take a short trip down memory lane to put the Infinity Stones back where they belonged. We all felt sad when we said goodbye to the Cap we know and love, and it seemed like the right way for Steve Rogers to go out. He gave Sam Wilson, aka Falcon, his shield, took over as Captain America, and finally got to dance with Peggy Carter. Steve Rogers did have a happy ending, but that doesn't mean his story is over. Fans have been begging Chris Evans to come back for a long time. Around his return, there has been more and more talk, like an alarm clock that we refuse to turn off. The MCU might be working on a way for him to come back. It's not as crazy as you might think. Strange things can happen in the Marvel Universe, and a secret story could be the key to Captain America's next adventure. In 2011, he played Steve Rogers for the first time in Captain America: The First Avenger. Doesn't it seem like a long time ago? Evans quickly became an important part of the MCU after that, representing everything Captain America stood for. He brought the character to life in a way that made us believe in the Star-Spangled Hero's ideals, whether he was facing Red Skull, Thanos, or even his fellow Avengers in Iron Man 3. After that, in Avengers Infinity War, everything began to fall apart. Following the event, Evans, Scarlett Johansson as Natasha Romanoff, and Anthony Mackie as Sam Wilson all stepped away from the main focus of the MCU. Once the big fight with Thanos was over, these heroes took a short break. But now, things get interesting. What happened while they were away? There are still stories that haven't been told, and those gaps in the timeline could be the best time for Captain America to make a comeback. This is where things get interesting. It seems exciting to think that Marvel went back in time to those years and told Steve Rogers' story as Nomad. In the comics, Steve Rogers changes his name to Nomad when he stops trusting the US government and chooses to work outside of the system. He's still a hero, but not in the red, white, and blue outfit. There are hints of this storyline in Avengers Infinity War, but the MCU didn't fully accept it. Remember how Steve was on the run for 2 years and worked from behind the scenes? Right, well, there is some classic Nomad drive. Honestly, an adventure project about nomads could fill the gaps and give us a more realistic, character-driven story. It also would let Chris Evans come back to the MCU without getting in the way of Sam Wilson's role as Captain America. When we talk about Sam Wilson, it is important to remember how well Marvel worked to make him the new Captain America. In The Falcon and the Winter Soldier, his journey from Falcon to Captain America is shown. By the end, people were fully on board with his campaign. So if Chris Evans did come back as Steve Rogers, it would have to happen in a way that didn't take away from Sam's time to shine. And that's where the Nomad story could really work. It would let both figures live in the MCU together without making one less important than the other. But wait, there's more. When you think about the chance of Scarlett Johansson's Black Widow coming back, the idea of a Nomad project gets even more exciting. You may be asking yourself, didn't Natasha give her life in Endgame? And yes, she did. But this is not the first time Marvel's brought a dead character back to life. Look at Black Widow, which tells us more about Natasha's life between Civil War and Infinity War. You could do the same thing with Steve Rogers and his time as Nomad. There have been some interesting theories that connects Johansson's Natasha to a possible Nomad plot. Some stories and some deleted Reddit posts that have made a lot of people wonder state that Natasha and Steve might have worked together when Steve was a Nomad to help him clean up the timeline. There's no proof yet, but the thought of Steve and Natasha working together again is enough to make any Marvel fan happy. Also, don't forget that Scarlett Johansson has hinted that she might be coming back to the MCU. Kevin Feige, the president of Marvel Studios, hinted that Scarlett's working on a top-secret Marvel project even after Natasha's sad death. Is there a link to Nomad? That's certainly possible, especially since Johansson and Evans work so well together on screen. Fans would go crazy if Marvel brought them back together, even if it was just for a short time. Now we have Steve Rogers as Nomad, who might be joined by Black Widow looking into a secret part of the MCU. How does this fit into the bigger story, though? The Nomad plot is great because it can be changed in many ways. Steve Rogers is so far out of time that his story could happen almost anywhere in the MCU universe. It doesn't have to mess up what's going on in the MCU right now, like Sam Wilson's journey as Captain America, or the rise of new heroes like Shuri and Shang-Chi. The Nomad story can live on its own little part of the MCU like Black Widow did. It wouldn't be wrong to call it a self-sufficient movie. Black Widow came out after Avengers Endgame, even though Natasha had already died, and it fits right in with the rest of the Marvel story. The story of Steve Rogers' Nomad could go in the same direction. This would give us more information about his character without making the future of the MCU more difficult. And this is where the fun really starts. Thanks to Loki, Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness, and the future Secret Wars, the MCU is all about going back in time and living in different worlds right now. What if Steve Rogers, the time traveler, met these heroes from different times? Loki is at the center of all the time-related chaos in the MCU. He's had a lot of run-ins with Steve and Natasha. The fact that he sees old friends showing up where they don't fit makes perfect sense. Think about Loki, the mighty trickster, taking Steve and Natasha out of their retirement and into the Secret War or a different timeline. There are a huge number of options, and the chances of crazy, mind-bending events are through the roof. On top of that, who wouldn't want to see Loki and Steve Rogers argue again? Of course, at this point, all of this is just a guess. There has been no word from Marvel Studios about any plans for a Nomad project, and Chris Evans' return has not been confirmed. Interesting hints, though, make it seem like something is likely to happen. On top of that, Marvel registered the word Nomad as a trademark in 2020, along with other names such as Secret Invasion, Ironheart, and Armor Wars. There has been no public news yet, but the trademark's still being used, which shows that Marvel hasn't forgotten about it. Besides that, since 2021, there have been persistent reports that Chris Evans is in talks to play Captain America again in some way. We as fans are going crazy over the thought of Evans coming back, even if it's just in a small way. And if those rumors are true, a Nomad project would be the best way to bring him back without taking away from how sad it was when Steve Rogers said goodbye in Endgame. But what does Marvel have planned for the MCU right now? There's been a lot of confusion about where the stories are going since Marvel recently changed their TV and movie schedules. Strikes by the Writers Guild of America and SAG-AFTRA have slowed down work, and delays within the company have made some projects a bit disorganized. But that doesn't mean that the Nomad idea can't happen. It might just need to find the right time to fit into the MCU storyline, which is always growing. As long as time and space are always changing, Steve Rogers' adventures as Nomad could take place almost anywhere. His story could go in a lot of different directions depending on whether he gives back the Infinity Stones or goes on a whole new journey. With Scarlett and Chris Evans, the possibility of Johansson working together again, excitement about this possible project keeps growing. We still don't know if we'll see Steve Rogers as Nomad in the end, but hope is a thing with feathers, right? However, if we could say one thing for sure, we can't wait for Chris Evans to come back to the MCU. There is a part of Steve Rogers' life that's never been told before, and the thought of exploring that part keeps us all on the edge of our seats. Hey, do you think Nomad's going to feature Chris Evans? Share your views with us in the comment section below. And if you enjoyed watching today's video, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel.